Okay, so the thing I want to talk about today is the 7 deadly sins. In the announcement documentation that we got from FFG, they briefly mentioned, and in the announcement video they were briefly mentioned there. But as you can see from here, if you thought the 4 horsemen were impressive, wait till you see the 7 deadly sins. Now that to me is the biggest information dump that FFG could give us, because there's one thing that everybody's saying which doesn't make any sense, and that is, the key thing is they're assigning 1 sin per house. Now, yes, that makes perfect sense. It's the first thing I did. I went, okay, this house is this one is this one, but then I actually stopped and thought about it. There's one key piece of information in here that means it's not going to be 1 per house, and that is if you thought the horsemen were impressive. If it was going to be 1 per house, they'd base it on the shards. They'd go, if you thought the shards were fun, we've got the 7 deadly sins coming in, because the shards were 1 per house, and they've got greed, and they've got pain, and they've got hope, and they've got things, and hate. They've got things that can correlate to the 7 deadly sins, with the shard of greed outright being a sin. But that's not what they said. What they said is, if you thought the horsemen were impressive. Now the horsemen were some people did think the horsemen were fun, the shards were fun. Triple shard decks were highly coveted at the beginning of AOA, but the horsemen are procedurally generated cards where you get all 4 together. Now you won't get all 7 sins together. The chances of that would be stupidly high, because that's 7 out of your 12 cards. The chances are you're going to get a minimum of 3 sins, a maximum of 7, much similar to the playgrounds. You can see this is something they've been building up to for some time. They started off with the horsemen, going with the procedurally generated cards that all have different effects that interact with each other. Then they moved on to the shards, showing 7 different cards. Then they moved on to the playgrounds, showing a different level of procedural generated cards. I think the 7 deadly sins is the output of these 3 past procedural generated cards creating this, and this is what I think is going to be huge, because you got the 7 deadly sins, but I don't think it's going to be the same as what we've seen in the past. I don't think it's going to be all of 1 card. In the past it's been playgrounds have been all creatures, horsemen been all creatures, shards been all artifacts. The 7 deadly sins could be anything. You could have a creature for wrath, you could have an action for greed, you could have a artifact for gluttony. You could make it so although they're procedurally generated and they'll bounce off each other, and you could go, okay, you won't have a greed without a gluttony, you won't have a wrath without a sloth. You'll get certain cards and you'll get all 7, but they won't all be the same. You'll have actions, you'll have ways to, they'll have different effects, and they'll impact the board differently than what we've seen in the past. And that's what I think they're hinting at here. If you thought the 4 horsemen were good and were amazing and were a lot of fun and people were hyped for them because they dealt with creature boards, they allowed you to use house cheats, they were able to pop wards, Horseman of Death was able to bring everything back, I think that the 7 deadly sins are going to go even further. They're going to be huge. They're going to be a couple of creatures, a couple of artifacts, and a few actions that all interact with each other, that all come back. You might even get the Sin of Pride being an action that lets you bring all other sins back to your hand, and then you can play 6 sins in a single turn. I think that is the way this is going. I think that is my Keyforge Theory. That is the main reason I'm streaming today. I was going to take the entirety of the day off, but I wanted to get my theory out there before other people did that. These cards will not be individual houses. These cards will not all be one single creature or anything along those lines. These are going to be huge cards that are going to be game changing in themselves. That are all going to be interact. They're going to be procedurally generated cards. A minimum of 3, a maximum of 7, and people are probably going to be paying hand over fist to get a full 7 shard deck, a full 7 sin deck. And if I get one of the Voltar in the UK, I'm playing it regardless of how good it is, because I just want to be able to show off that I got one. But they are going to be a mixture of actions, artifacts, and creatures that all have specific effects that affect the board. You're going to have Wrath, which is probably going to be an action that allows your creatures to fight. You're going to have Greed, which may be an artifact that gets you to generate a load of amber. You're going to have Gluttony, which is going to probably be a capture card, because Gluttony and Greed are very similar, and there's not ways you can really interpret it into Keyforge, but I think that is the way it's going to go. And if this is right, I'm going to be so proud. But I've spent the last 24 hours-ish thinking on this, and a lot of people are making the same mistake. It is not going to be one per house. It is not going to be all the creature of greed. It is going to be sin cards in a mixture of artifacts, creatures, and actions. Please message me, comment in the chat. Let me know if you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm full of crap. But to me, this makes perfect sense. The accumulation of 3 sets worth of research into the augmented cards, and the way that they affect the board, these procedurally generated cards, the way that they've gone, has all been accumulating to these 7 cards. The playgrounds were the final ones that they wanted to do to see how people would take off with 3 to 8 cards being in there. The shards were the second test, seeing how people would react in that aspect, and the horsemen were the first pip. Richard Garfield has said repeatedly that he wanted more procedurally generated cards in set 1, and I think the 7 deadly sins are the way forward. I think this is what it's been building up to, and they're the hints that we put down, and that's why I think the biggest bit of information dump that came out from this was the 4. If you thought the 4 horsemen were impressive, you wait till you see the 7 deadly sins. It's not going to be one per house. It's going to be all together in a single house, possibly like an anomaly. They could generate between houses. They could go in between. If you're going to put them into one house, it's going to have to be Shadows of Dis, because demons and thieves. But I think they're going to be just like anomalies. They can show up in any house. They're going to take up 3 to 7 of your slots, and because of how many slots they take up, each card is going to have an indicative effect that has a real impact on the board. These are the cards that are going to set the meta, and it might just be hype. It might just be hype, the same as we had when the Horsemen came around and it slowly died out. But to me, the way that they're hyping these up, the way that they're pushing for the 7 deadly sins and keeping it a bit secretive, these cards are going to be game changing. These cards are going to be legitimate meta changes. They're going to be ones that we see at Vault Warriors. They're going to be cards that we see at not at Worlds. They're going to be ones that start to show up at Vault Tours. These are the ones that are going to push the envelope of Keyforge, because procedurally generated cards, like we've seen with Blasters, like we saw with Playgrounds, they can have a huge impact. And if you've got 7 cards that interact with each other, that help each other, that'll be a big push. But that's all I'm going to say on the point of the 7 deadly sins. I'm going to play a couple of games, and then I'm going to shoot, and I'm going to play my deck that I'm going to play at the Prime.